Welcome back, everyone, to R2Kast number 29, Series 2, Episode 4. We're on now, but thought I'd try and keep the numbers going. So, number 29. Today, we have got Ross Pattinson. Ross, if you want to say hello to the viewers there.
Hello, everyone. I'm here.
So Ross got a really good story, and looking forward to getting into it. Absolutely. It's a bit of a success story, starting from not having a farm and now farming, which is a good story. I originally started this podcast to sort of show the type of jobs that you can have in farming, the type of jobs that are out there, how to get into farming. And so many folk have said to me, and you know, very much in a privileged position that my parents own the farm. You know, I'm not farming myself, but folk have said, how do you actually start? If you don't have a farm yourself, how do you sort of work up? And albeit it was in the family to a point, this is a really good story for that. So if that's the sort of thing you're interested in, make sure to like the video and also follow on Spotify as well, and we'll get on into it. Ross, Could you tell us a bit about your sort of childhood? Were you interested in farming? Did you have any connection to farming at that stage, that sort of thing there?
Yeah, thanks, Paula. My uncle and grandparents farmed. They had a dairy farm, and pedigree Suffolk and pedigree Leicester sheep. So I spent as much time as I could when I was young on the farm, helping out, milking and lambing and doing all the jobs that were to be done. And just my interest grew from there. And we every now and again would get a pet lamb or two off my grandfather, and he would give us a few lambs to rear. Where we lived on a street in the town, had a little bit of shared land behind it, actually. The street had 60 houses on, and it was 30 houses down both sides, and at the very end, there was a bit of rough land, and everybody on the street had a plot of this land. Not very big, about the size of a garage, normal car garage. And it would be from back in the war days that everybody had a plot of land that could grow their own veg on or whatever. And we, nobody was using it. It was just rough, full of trees and bushes and gorse. And we wrote a little letter to everybody on the street and said any chance we could cut the bushes down and use the land to put some chickens and that on at the time. And we did that, and a few sheep, and it all kind of grew from there, really. When I was about 13, 14, I pestered my dad enough to buy us some proper sheep, some what we call, some lambing yows. And we bought 5 ewes with 10 lambs off the man and put them in this little field where my dad worked. It was on an old airfield, actually. Where we lived in a place called Silla, and it had an airfield with lots of hangars on it. It would be from back in the war. It was a coastal town in the northwest of England, and he worked for a fertilizer plant, and the fertilizer was stored in this big hangar, and the little bit of land around the edges was all rough again. My dad asked the boss if he could put the bit of fence up and we could graze it, and the boss said, yeah, if you keep it tidy, you can have that bit of field. So our 5 sheep and 10 lambs went in there, and a little bit behind the house. And then we sold the 10 lambs, and that gave us enough money to buy another 5 yows. And then they had lambs, and we sold their lambs and bought another few yows and got another little bit of land. And this just went on and on for 2 or 3 years till I left school. And
you know, that in itself is brilliant. I mean, I think the big issue with farming, and I think we as farmers try and pretend it's not the case, was wrong, because it's not true. It's not easy to get in. You know, it's really not. There's barriers to entry, major ones really. Land's extortionate, and even the places that are affordable, folk don't want to sell. And you know, coming from someone who owns land, I get the reason. If you own something, you want that, you want to keep it. That's an investment in your future. But that sort of story of the little bit at the back of the house in a town like that's That's brilliant. I think I love to hear that sort of thing. Just
Well,
out of interest,
yeah.
you were taking the pet lambs. I assume that would be April time. When would you be selling them? How would?
Just in well, some of them made it, some of them never.
Aye.
There were Leicester. I shouldn't say this, but there were blue Leicester black ones back in the day when blue Leicesters had to be white and no dirt on them whatsoever. A black one was sinned upon, and they had to disappear off the farm in case anybody ever came to look round. So I got the black ones given to me. So a few Leicester took lambs and a few Leicester gave me lambs. They never really turned into a lot, I remember. But, they would be fed before school, and school was only like half a mile along the road. But I would bike to school and often come back at dinner time, feed them, or my mum would feed them, and then feed them again at night. And
It's learning.
I can't remember what happened to them, to be honest. It was just a little hobby bit, yeah.
But it's learning that discipline from a young age, you know, and getting that interest in farming is brilliant. You know, it's a thing that my mum used to sell sort of rabbits and guinea pigs, and pets are a dying. The pets aren't dying. It's like a dying thing, pets, isn't it? And you know, it's something kids could have their guinea pig and they could keep their guinea pig alive, and it's a life skill in its sense, in itself, you know.
I'd paper around from a very young age, and I would go and pick my papers up in town and drive and ride them around on my bike and deliver all them. So you know, and our family, but all our family at workers, you know, it's instilled on us, you know, watching my dad and watching my mum, that they worked as much as they could. And my dad drove a lorry like for the company, the fertilizer company, and he would be away at 4 a.m. and back at 6, 7 o'clock at night, and you know, it was drove into us that you worked and you made a living from working, you know.
If only I'd managed to take some of that fertilizer home and keep it till now, it'd be worth a few million. Like
there was an odd bus bag have disappeared now and again.
don't tell us that. It's a crazy price at the minute. Maybe we'll get into that as we go on.
Unbelievable.
So you said you bought sort of five ewes and lambs, and then you know sold lambs, bought more ewes, and continued. What age were you when this was happening, Ross?
13 or 14, maybe, when the first few came. And off the same man we bought the ewes and lambs off, he bought the lambs back off us, sold us another few ewes, and it just worked like that, really. My dad bought a little trailer, and he had a van, and we used to pull the trailer about in a van at weekends, moving sheep about. Yeah, he helped me a lot along the way, you know.
And they were what breed? Sorry,
they were mules to start with,
right.
Just North of England mules. With Suffolk lambs, the first ones that came.
Right.
And we put a white tup on them after that, Texel tup on them.
Yeah.
Where we live, the local auction is a very white-faced sheep auction, right. Like Beltexes and Texels and real meat sheep. So we tried to breed. And we kept the white lambs out the ewes and tried to breed them 3/4 bred Texel and Beltexy cross type lambs.
Right. Yeah. At least you converted from the poor terminal sire to a good one. I'm gonna get attacked by the Suffolk breeders for that one.
They have the place. They have the place.
They do, and somewhat of a resurgence actually.
Definitely. But just our local auction loved them whitings, you know. So you try and breed what you can sell, and that's always been my philosophy, you know.
No, absolutely, and look, I just have a bit of a laugh. It's just we've got Texels at home, and you know, it's good. It's good to see a native such as a Suffolk being used as just more of a bit of a loyalty battle, if nothing else. Did you say Silith there?
The place called Silith, yeah.
Yes. So I went there. Oh God, my ex and I had bought a house, and my gran had come over to see it, and we weren't exes then together, and we sort of took Gran down Carlisle way, and then we saw something was happening in Silith. It was this sort of party, but it was the first day masks and stuff had disappeared in England, but I'm funnily enough from the accent in Scotland. And it was quite surreal, but it was brilliant. It's this sort of like me. I don't know what it was. Is there a summer festival there? I don't know how.
Carnival or something. Was it August? Did they have a carnival in August? Yeah. There's all sorts going on. They have a big, the big green on the front and that. This is often, and it's a big tourist town, really. That's all it is. It's tourism, really. There's a few caravan sites there, and that's all there was really. There was caravans and a little bit of industry, but not much. There's a docks there. There's quite a lot of fertilizer comes into the docks. That's kind of why there's a flour mill. A lot of wheat comes in the dock for the flour. Cars flour. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Oh yeah. And a really nice sort of view over Amund and Fries and
yeah, you'd see home, aye.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
right
it's been home for the last few months. It's a new home, but absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So you kind of enterprising as an almost teen, started building up a flock there. I assume there was a limit as to how much in that sort of bit of borrowed land you could do. So how many did you build up to before things had to sort of move?
Well, it didn't really stop. We just got to fill that bit and then found another bit. Filled that land and then, we could maybe see if we can get a field off this man or that man. And just kept getting a little bit more and just kept, we never put any money aside. Every bit we made, we bought more yows or a new tub or a new trailer or some hurdles or some fencing or, we just didn't spend out we didn't spend out of our means. We just, at that time, my dad was working, I was working, so we used that money to live off, and the sheep money just bought more sheep, and more feed or whatever we needed, and we just kept taking a bit more land and just finding another bit. Or we did try and take some in the. They do like a yearly rent each year. Our local auction, you could rent a field, but it was extortionate because you were competing against dairy farmers and big farmers that just wanted another 10 or 20 acres just to tide them over. Or we just couldn't pay that sort of money, so we just had to keep taking the bottom end stuff and just improve it as we went along. It's amazing how that rough ground improves by just grazing it and let it grow back, and then grazing it, and you turn it from 10-inch long rough horrible grass into a green field within a couple of years.
And that was pretty much all you were doing, was grazing it?
That's what we were doing, yeah. And then we managed to get, about 50 acres off a farm next to my grandfather's, Dyson's. So that was our first good bit of land we managed to rent. She was looking for somebody to farm it 12 months of the year, look after the fences, the hedges, everything, just go in and farm it on a year-to-year basis. So then we did, we took a fair jump there. We had to buy a big bundle of sheep and to graze that. And we'd left school by then, so we had a bit more time. And I set off milking cows on other farms. And then I could do my other jobs through the day, or stop on that farm and work, or come home and do my sheep, or whatever, really. And we started when I left school, I went to Newton Rig as an apprentice, and took that on. So I don't know, really. It was, I don't know what, I don't want to try and offend anybody, but I don't really know. I'd done a lot of farming by then, and there wasn't a lot that could learn us in that apprentice scheme.
Okay.
We should have really gone further on into a management type course or something to sort of learn as the next step. For
sure, yeah. And I think, it's every day's a school day, isn't it? I mean, I've been through 5 years of education and now I work in education, and every day I'm like, oh. But I think
there was bits, but
I think we're maybe at that age, when we're doing apprenticeships, that sort of thing, we're maybe guilty of thinking, but I know it. The truth is, we probably don't know all. I mean, like yourself, you've been in it for 4 or 5 years for sure, and like you're saying, maybe doing that managerial thing would have been worthwhile. What was it? Just 1 year you were at Newton Rig?
I did two. Yeah, we met like once a week, or we did have like a week blocks and that. Then we'd do a week or 2 blocks. I'm being too harsh really. They did learn us quite a bit of mechanic and side of things, and we got our tickets for like dipping sheep and using a chainsaw. What else did we get? Oh, clipping. That was the one big thing I got out of it. I went on the clipping course, sheep clipping course, and got me a start clipping sheep, and that took off a lot from there, to be honest.
Yeah, it's I'll just actually ask you that in a minute. Just one thing for the viewers listening and watching, Newton Rig is a college. Is it Penrith? It is.
It is, but it's actually
well,
shut.
Not now.
Yeah,
I was just going to say that. Yeah, it's so Penrith, which is those of you that listen probably know I'm a lecturer with SRUC, which is in Dumfries. Now I couldn't give you the exact distance between the two, but they were to a point competition. They were close enough that they were competition, but Newton unfortunately shut, which is a shame. But yeah, hopefully not signs of things to come for other places, because you really want to keep places like that open. If there's not one in Penrith, there's a big gap there that the youngsters aren't getting that contact for agriculture education. But listen, we could sit and talk about that forever. But clipping, did you ever think about following that up?
I did a lot. I remember me and my dad, we had a big go at clipping. We borrowed my uncle's clipping gear before I'd done all the clipping course. It was taking two of us to hold each sheep, and we clipped a lot of them stood up. We just kind of, Dad held them and I clipped them, and we got them knocked off. But when I went on this course and they showed me the proper, I don't know, it's what you actually call the proper, like what they clip in New Zealand and Australia, that sort of system. It took off, yeah, and I got into a gang with a couple of lads clipping on their trailer, helping them.
Right.
And through the summer, I realised we could really make money here if I can get half decent at it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we did that. I clipped with him for a couple of years. Well, I clipped with two different fellas on and off. Just in amongst my milking cows, clipping sheep, bit of tractor work, bit of contracting. Still going to college a bit. Building my sheep up. Trying to keep them going. And yeah, the clipping got to a point really where I decided I could maybe put my own trailer on. Right. So I managed to get an old trailer off a fella who'd retired, and we started looking for a few of our own customers. And yeah, we managed to get a half decent roundup. I took a young lad on, and started him off, and off we went, the two of us, and I don't really know what we got up to, 6,000 or 7,000 sheep maybe between us. But
excellent.
With time things went on, and we got another farm, and that kind of had to stop. And the young lad took over from me, and he's going like a train now. He's flying. He's got he'll have a big round now, I would think. Yeah.
Is that a name we might know?
Adam Bell, I call the lad.
Right.
No, I don't think you'll know him.
No.
He'll be, good lad in the area.
You mentioned the sort of name of the how we shear. I've shorn like 4 sheep in my life.
Right.
I think I might need to share this. Maybe some people might say, but I'm positive there's wool in the name. It's like Frederick Woolsley or Walsley or something like that was the guy that created the method that it's used now, I'm sure. My dad will be listening to this saying, Wallace, how don't you know that? But it's something like that.
I couldn't tell you, no. I couldn't tell you. And then we got into competition shearing. I went to a few competitions as well at local shows, and ended up winning the juniors at Yorkshire Show one year, and then they asked me to go to the Welsh then to compete against the winners of the Royal, was it Cornwall, Highland? There was 5 winners anyways. The top 2 from 5 shows competed at a special competition at the Welsh. So that was about me at my pinnacle, and I finished 5th, I think. So I was
excellent.
I was pretty chuffed with that.
Definitely. And you may or may not know of Cameron Wilson, the sheep game.
Seen him, yeah.
You probably do. If you've heard of me, I don't know how you've not heard of him. I film a podcast with him. He sort of does. He's got a podcast for his guys, and I sort of co-host it here and there. And it's mainly shearing folk, because he's in that obviously. And I'm just out my depth with everything. I say to him all the time, I was like, you always get these fit folk on, and I'm sitting here looking like a cupcake. It's not fair. But I guess the question that this is leading to is how is that shearing scored? It's not purely on time, it's not purely on quality, but how does it all work? Right.
On both, really. So you get points. The fastest man will get a point.
Yep.
And the second man gets certain points. It'll deduct. You get less each time, I think, as you go along. And then there's a judge watching you while you clip with a counter, and he's counting double clips. So if you miss a bit, go back. That's a fault, and you get a click put on your clicker. And that judge will watch you for a while, and another judge will come up, tap him on the shoulder. He'll move to the next, so that everybody's getting judged by every judge, and everybody's getting clicked on. You know, they just pass the clicker on, and you move on. And then when they go through the chute out the back, there's another judge looking for cuts, and I suppose probably the amount of wool that's left on, he'll give you a certain grade for the amount of wool that you've missed. You know, if you've missed any.
And then does every fault just add on, 4 seconds or something? Is that how that works? Or?
Christ, it's that long, I can't remember. But no, I think it just adds up. I don't think it's time. I think it's points. Right. You get points for your time, and then all the points add up. And the more, I don't know exactly how it works, but it's that long since I've done it. But somehow it works. But it's all three things. So your speed, the amount of double clips, if you're going back for a bit, and then your backboard score, which your pen score afterwards, whether you've cut any or whether you've left a lot on and stuff. Yeah.
You kept build land, taking on land, taking on stock, taking on land, taking on stock, and you've got a place now. You're renting a place at the minute, which we'll come to. But what sort of area, and you might not know this specifically, but roughly, or specifically, sorry, what sort of area and what sort of numbers of stock could you build up to, just in pockets here and there?
Well, probably in my early 20s, we got another kind of big step where we managed to rent a house with a few buildings and 30 acre off our local auction mark. They bought a small farm, well, 200 acre farm, but they give us 20 acre on a 12-month lease. We were allowed to use the buildings and the house. So me and my girlfriend at the time moved into there. That was pretty much next door to my granddad, so it was perfect. I was milking for him at the time and working for them, so I could just nip along the road, do a bit for them, come home and do up, go back there, work away. And then another local farmer was giving up half of his farm. There'll be about 250 acre with that, and a big shed capable of holding 150 cattle maybe. Cubicles and bedded bit, slurry store, silage pits. But this was about 4 or 5 miles away. But it was all in a one lump, and it was all there, and we decided to go for it and take it. So we would have that. They still had Dyson's, which was 50 acre. We'd give all the little bits up by then, around the old fertilizer hangers. It was too far away to go for a little. It was about 11 mile away from home where we got this little farm from the house where mum and dad were. So we'd give all the little bits up, and we would have about 320, 30 acre maybe. So got up to about 400 sheep, and we had room for cattle then at this new place. So we started taking on summer cattle and winter cattle.
Yep.
We didn't have the money to go out and buy a lot. I've managed to build a few up. We had about 20 cows of our own, and we took in about 100, 120. The first year, the man who we sort of dealt with a dealer, and he was looking to summer cattle and winter cattle, and he sent me about 120 black and white bullocks at about 12 months old, and they come off this wagon. I'm like, what are these? They were like skeletons coming off this wagon. Yeah. And we let them up onto this top of the buyer's farm, and they just ran about there all summer, and they did all right, to be fair. And we put them in the cubicles in the winter, and they did not so bad. And I said, what are you doing with these cattle? How long do you want to keep them? Well, we want them to be like a ton weight. I says, a ton weight? I says, yeah, we'll take them to like 30 to 40 months. I'm like, what? So we summoned them again, and these cattle went out, and they were enormous by now because they were Holstein black and white bullet. These great big things went out, and they grazed again, and they got to about August time, September, and he said, right, them cattle need to go. And yeah, we killed all them, and he fetched like continental cattle next time for the winter. They were a bit nicer to look at and a bit more like my sort of cattle. And but hey, they got us on. It was a weekly wage, and it was 100 and some cattle, and it helped pay the rent. And you know, they pretty much paid the rent. My sheep lived there for free, and that's how we always sort of looked at them cattle that we took on.
So you never on that place. You never had your own stock. Sorry, your own cattle. I mean, your own cattle.
No, I think we maybe did have a few cows up there, but
right.
It wasn't very easy for calving them because they were 5 miles away. You know, and there was no such thing as a Wi-Fi camera then. It was all you had to fetch them home to calve them and then cart them back, and so we just left them at home because then they were to AI or bull if they were a lot handier if they were at home. You know,
and it would have been north of England mules you had there as well. Is that?
No, we had a lot of white sheep by then out
Right.
of the mule, and then because we built so fast, we had to go and buy something cheap. So, or something we could afford. We needed a lot of numbers, and we didn't have a lot of money, so we went and bought about 300 in lamb chivet yows.
Right.
So there were sort of north of England chivets with Beltec Charolais lambs in them off a fella called Chris Brody. Very good friend of mine, still a good friend. And I thank him for everything he's taught me over the years with farming chivets. And we used to go to Dingwall and buy them after that. We used to go with him to Dingwall, or we went to Leg once with him. He took us up to there and see them sold up there. And we bought a wagon load out of there. And so we got started with the chivets, and they were just, they were sensible to buy. You could buy them at, drafts at 70 quid. Take a lamb or two out of them. You could even get 2 seasons out of a lot of them. And then when you put them in the cast, they were going for 60 quid. So you were getting 2 years of life out of them, possibly 3 lambs there, lamb and a half per year, and then losing a tenner, Depreciation on them was nothing. Whereas if you went to try and buy a Swadle draft at 120 quid, and then put her in the draft 2 years later, then 40 quid, just the depreciation was too much for me trying to get going forward. We were just trying to breed a fat lamb and put white-faced tups on them again, and they bred a nice sort of lamb,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just quickly for those listening, I'm interrupting Ross, but he's mentioning draft there. What that sort of means is with hill yows, your hill yows sort of breed pure on the hill, be that blackie, swale, cheviot, whatever. We're talking about cheviots at the minute. And basically once you get to this stage, for whatever reason, be that age, just any problems with feet, that sort of thing, teeth, loads of different reasons. I'm not going to go into them all, sort of depending on whatever your policy is on the farm. You sort of basically decide to bring them down onto easier ground, give them a bit of an easier time, and hopefully still get a couple more lambs out of them. And that's called drafting. So that's what we're talking about there. Do you think you ever bought off of Scotland's famous Joyce Campbell up at Laird?
No, we couldn't afford them. We bought middle of the road. We didn't buy the worst and we didn't buy the best. We just bought nice, square, sturdy sheep. And yeah, so there was two. You didn't want to buy them really little ones because then they didn't cash out very well. At the end, you shouldn't really think about things like that when you're buying them in as to what they're going to make in the cast when they go out. But that's the way we had to farm them. Some would only get 1 year out, some we were getting 2 year out. So it wasn't long before they were actually having to get turned over, Yeah. And then having to buy more back. So the more we could make out of them, but as the next, we could maybe buy slightly better next year. So that's just pretty much how it worked. And we did that for quite a few years, really. And the Texels sort of dwindled away, really. And we just kept buying more chivets and doing that for quite a few years till we didn't really have many continental sheep after that.
No, mum and dad have brought them on and they're quite happy with them. They're a nice animal. I'm interested in age because it's also quick. I don't normally ask everyone's age at every stage in their life, but what age were you when you took this place on then, Ross? The sort of the place we're just talking about.
I'll be in my early 20s then when we got that
Right.
all that ground. Early 20s, and we would farm that like that for until 2011. So 10, 11 years ago, I would be, oh Christ, 27, huh?
Right.
27, 8, when we put in a tender for the farm we're on now. We had tendered for a couple of places before the farm we're on now. A local dairy farm came up. Because I was milking morning and night every night. Dairy was a really big thing in my life.
Yeah.
My uncle had the Holstein pedigree cows. I knew everyone by looking at them. I've always had a passion for dairy, and I don't mind getting up in the morning. I could do it. It's well paid. You got a good hourly rate. You could do your few hours in the morning, take off for the rest of the day, do a few hours at night, and the rest, it worked well with what we were doing. Clipping in the summer. We had a dipping trailer. We went around contract dipping as well in the summer. So it all just worked in well. I'm thinking back now. I don't know how the hell we got it all done, to be honest, but we must have done somehow. So yeah, in 2011, we put our third tender in for the third farm, and it was a 360-acre marginal farm where we are now. So we were totally out of the area. We're 30 miles away from where we grew up. Where the first farm was Wigton, which is the land of milk and honey. There's all dairy cows around there. They're ploughing every acre, growing maize, growing whole crop, with combines everywhere. And any bit of land that came up to rent in that area was £200 an acre. If you wanted to rent that land on a yearly let, it wasn't even a yearly let, from April to October, was £200 an acre. No subsidy. No subsidy. You got 100 weight and a half of fert put on for you before you went on. And it was £200 an acre. And that's the kind of land we were competing against down there. The bits we had weren't, because we got them lumps in the private sort of deals. But if you wanted to just go and rent an acre at the auction in March, when they did the auctions, it got up to £200 an acre for 7 months of grazing. Like, it was,
that's mental, that, isn't it?
ridiculous.
And just to, I'm not an imperial minded person. 100 weight and a half, is that about 75 kilos? Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, some would put a little bit more on.
For sure.
But on average, that's kind of what they were putting on. Yeah.
No, that's expensive.
And if you wanted to stock it hard, and you had to put more on, you had to go with your own fert and put more on. You didn't get any of the subsidy. The landlords took the subsidy and get £200 an acre. It was just ridiculous what people. But as I say, there was lots of farms in the area wanted another 10 acre of land, put some heifers away for the summer, put some sheep away for the summer, whatever. And it was nothing to them because they had 200 milk cows at home to justify it, but it was just hard to get going, and I totally understand where people are coming from now. They say they can't struggle to get going, because it is, unless you're quite lucky and fall in the right place at the right time. It's really, really hard. But
absolutely.
On the other side, we worked hard, and we showed people knew who I was, and seen the stock we were turning out at the auctions. We turned some good stock cattle out, we turned some good lambs. Everything we showed looked well, and people get to see that. And the people, that's that lad who does all that milking and clipping, and I think we could give him a chance with a bit of land. He'll look after it, because I'm not trying to be big-headed. I'm just saying if you can make yourself, sell yourself, is what I'm saying.
It's a networking industry. Folk know each other, and
totally.
there's no. And it's funny. I'll ask a question that this might come up in your answer later on. It's sort of how I finish all the podcasts. But so many people know. I mean, they don't even have to be nearby. It can be 40 miles away, and say, "Oh yeah, I know him. He's the." News travels quick. So yeah, you're right. If you work hard and you show you're interested and passionate, it goes a million miles.
And my grandfather was well known. He bred some real good stock, and my uncle, and they used to show the sementals, and they showed the dairy, and they showed the sheep a bit. So they were well known in the area. And he used to say, "Oh, I'm Bob Carter's grandson, or I'm Andrew Carter's nephew," and we know them, and that that can get you a foot in the door as well. If you can say you're related to them, or you've worked for somebody that people know, it gets you a foot in the door sometimes.
Couldn't agree more. And it's there is quite an underlying layer of nepotism in agriculture, and absolutely take advantage of it where possible. So just on the tendering, and tell me you don't want to answer this if not. What's involved in tendering for a farm? It's not something I've ever done. It's
a lot.
Is it? Yeah. Is it a process?
And it's numbers, and it's forecasting,
right?
Which I'm not great at. Every time we did a tender, we would get our accountants involved, and as soon as you get them involved, it's 1,000 quid or 2,000 quid. And you go around the farm and you look at what you might be able to do, and you have to convey all this to the account. We had to, because we wasn't very good at doing a forecast, but convey that to the accountant and say, well, this is what we're thinking we could do. Can you put this in a 3-year plan? How we're going to manage to pay for it? How we're going to make money to pay the rent? And that's all they're really looking at, is that final, right in the bottom right-hand corner. Doesn't matter really what you're doing up here, is the money at the bottom where you can pay that rent. And how much. The problem with putting the 3-year forecasting is nobody has a clue what's going to happen in that 3 years. What we used to put, well, I'm going to sell 1,000 lambs at £80 a piece, but nobody knew whether they were going to be 80 quid, 100 quid, or 50 quid. Yeah. We just put them in at 80 quid, and we're going to buy these many yows at 80 quid, 70 quid, or whatever. But nobody knew whether they were going to be that or not. But we just had to make the numbers as reasonable as possible. We never got through to the final 3 on the first 2. I was quite annoyed with the first one, actually. It had all been a setup before it even went to, and this is something that young people putting tenders in might come across, but a man had been renting a bit of land. The farm we put a tender in, he'd been renting it to put heifers on for 2 years. A lad who'd been on it before had been badly, and they had to go to public tender, but it was all sewn up before that the man who'd got the heifers on was going to get it. So there was many people like me put tenders in, spent money, and I don't know, it was all wrong. It was all wrong, because afterwards we found out that this guy with the heifers was always going to get it. They'd agreed a price before he even went to tender. I mean, I went on the look round there, and there'd be 100 people walking around. I don't know how many of them put a tender in, or how many of them spent time or money doing it. But, there's a lot. When you go to look around the place, and it does like that, it knocks you back, it's your dream to take that place, and every time you get knocked back, it's hard going.
And when there's that sort of hidden foregone conclusion to it, it's a bit like, couldn't you just have told us before we get involved,
Exactly, absolutely. Saved us the money and the time and the effort and the dream, So,
But time went on, and that dream did come true. You found somewhere. Looks like a nice farmhouse you're in currently.
Yeah.
So how did that come about?
We came round, we walked around the farm. It's 360 acre they were putting up for offer. House buildings, cubicle sheds, slurry pits, silage pits. The big problem was, and we put a few people off, that an air road ran right through the middle of it. So the A69, which is one of the main roads between east and west, from Carlisle to Newcastle, runs right through the middle. There's an underpass, so you can get cattle and sheep under the road.
Right.
But anything you want to do, like tractor-wise, you've got to wait and get on that road the best you can. It's a very busy road.
Yeah.
So that put a few off, but we didn't put us off. We thought, bugger it, we're going to just put a tree in. And farm was in ring fence other than the road, but it was all in a one ring fence. So yeah, we put a tender in. My wife, we'd been married by then. The wife was pregnant. We got to the final three, and it was like, you're kidding me, you know, we're in the final three, and we got to go to an interview, and I was so nervous, the pair of us. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was in about the October time, I think. Yeah, September, October. And we hadn't get to look in the house at this point. When they did the viewing days, they were doing the house up, so the house was locked. We got to look through the windows, but it looked rough, to be fair. If they're pregnant, due in the March, we were going to take this farm on in the October, but November, with no house to go into right away, unless they got a shift on and got it finished. But anyways, we got the interview, and the couple that they're from London, the couple that own the farm, had been passed down through generations to them, and they wanted to see a young family go into the farm. There's never been a kid born in this house for 100 years before we moved in. Everybody had always took it as a tenancy with their own families ready made, like so. That was one thing that she did say, the wife of the couple. Yeah, and we sat on tenterhooks for a few days, a week. I can't even remember how long. And then next thing, we got the phone call to say we'd accepted your offer and we'd like to offer you the tenancy. And it was a 15-year tenancy. So, you know, at that time, it was quite a good tenancy. There was very little around that was offering you that. So we jumped at the chance and signed on the dotted line. We already had a lot of sheep to come, a lot of cattle to come, with the connections for the summer grazing, the winter housing, because we still couldn't afford to put all suckler cows on if we wanted to. So we pretty much just moved everything we were doing to here. We were already had the stock. We didn't have to buy a lot of stock. There was a little bit of ingoings to buy on the farm, so we, borrow a bit of money there to buy what was here, machinery wise and silage and different things. And buy we had to buy the subsidy, obviously. Then you had to buy the sub, and that was quite a big jump, I remember. But you had to have it, It wasn't a farm that was viable without it then, really. So we took it and.
Sorry, I was just going to say it's the whole subsidy thing's a worrying thing in itself. We won't get into it, but could you tell us a bit about what you've got at the home farm? I mean, I've seen your Instagram and Facebook and stuff. There's some stock with more muscles than Mr. Olympia. Like it's a different world to what we're doing up here. So yeah. Well, when we moved here, we fetched the Chivets. We changed to more rear and dairy heifers, really, rather than them beef type cattle. So we took a couple of dairy fellas on and we reared them. One was my uncle, one was another man who would send us cattle summer and winter. We built the cow. We kind of changed tack with the cows, really. We'd had commercial cows. We were trying to push them Blue Cross cows with the blue ball back on, trying to breed show calves. That's my youth was with my grandfather, was around shows, showing cemental cattle. I love showing cattle. I just love it. And so we were trying to breed show cattle from crossbreds, and we got some nice calves, but we were having a few cesareans with one another. We just decided we'd maybe have a go with a pure blue. If we're going to have a cesarean, we might as well try and some pedigree. Calve a few, cesarean a few, whatever, but we might have something with a little bit more value at the end rather than just a £1,500 commercial. So it all started from my wife's 21st. We went to Moffat to Andy Ryder's dispersal sale. Right. I bought me then fiance a cow, in-calf cow for her birthday, for her 21st.
And that's how the blue bit started. And she had a calf, and bull calf, I remember. And we flushed her and got about 15 eggs on the first go. I was like, this is easy, this. I don't know why we haven't done this before. A cow and a calf from Elaine's family. She had a few blues. They had a few blues. Elaine's family farmers as well. And uncle, they have farms in the Wick area. And they had a few blue cattle, so we got a cow and them. So just started the dairy heifers, built the blues up, carried on with the Chivet to a blue Leicester tup, and started breeding Chivet mule lambs instead of just fat lambs.
Right.
We found that worked very, very well. It was just when Chivet mules were coming into fashion, and yeah, you could sell them in September. They were well sought after. You were easily sold. The weather's finished any as heavy and as quick as any Texel tup could do, or whatever crossbred tups we were using. So they worked well for us, really. We had contacts on dairy farms where we'd take cows at winter and fat lambs to finish. So we got all them. We were a bit of fodder beat, and we just kept the sheep very, very commercial raised. We tried to keep them on the cheap side, really.
Yeah.
I've forgotten what the question was. It seems as though I've gone on and on, but
no, it's fine.
We built that up for a few years. We just carried on like that. I was also still going off milking in between hands, so we had the farm. It still couldn't really pay without me going off working.
Yep.
My wife had the baby by then, so she wasn't really working a lot. She did get back to. She was hairdressing and to make and doing different bits and bobs, just farming the 360 acre we had, just like that until the back end of 2018. No, yeah, 2018. The farm I was working at, decided he was going to put a new parlour in, and so the old parlour was coming out, obviously, and it's always been a dream of mine to maybe milk my own cow somewhere one day, whether it was here or whether it was wherever, I don't know, but it was a dream of ours, or mine anyway, maybe not the wife's so much. So I said, what's happening with the old parlour? And he said, well, we're just going to sell it, it's no good to us. And, so the old cogs started turning, and we'd reared all these dairy heifers. We had plenty of, cubicle, silage, slurry set up was already here. Well, could we do it or not? And bugger it, we're going to do it. We're going to, and we'd had a good year with a few blues. Our blues, going off on another little tangent, but our blues, we realised we had some polled ones. Yeah. Polled blue cattle are very rare. And in the years before that, we'd had an odd blue calf that was polled, and we just thought, oh, well, that's good. It's so just like everybody else. And I mentioned it to somebody one day. I was like, I had a polled calf born last week. He was like, you what? I had a polled calf born last week. Well, I've never ever heard of that before. Like, nobody else has a one. It's like, oh, right. Okay. So I thought, well, yeah. So I mentioned it to an AI company in Belgium, actually, and they were like, you've got polled blues. Oh, man, the only other polled blues I know in the world are in Canada. Like, this was back in, 2018, 17, 18. So we struck a deal with them and sold them a cow and a heifer, her calf, a cow and her calf. And, that sort of gave us a fair chunk of the money to put this parlour back in. So that was kind of how it all kind of came about. Really, was this polled cow and calf give us a bit of a cash in,
That's a great story, that, isn't it? I mean, to be honest, my knowledge of that side of farming is quite poor, but so when you said to me, I wasn't like, wow, but then when you said, how rare it was, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Well,
you mentioned,
so we bought this parlour. We decided we'd put it in this certain shed. The parlour we bought was an 8-a-side herringbone, with units both sides. But the shed we were putting it in wasn't long enough. It wasn't wide enough. It was long, but it wasn't wide. It was an old style stone barn. So I was like, where can this fit? And we decided to put the 2 8s in a line and make it 116 down one side. So the parlour we have at the minute is a 16 one-sided herringbone in this old stone barn, but it joined onto the cow shed. It made all perfect sense. That was where it should go, and so that's where we put it. And few folk I spoke to said, "Oh no, build a new shed, put a new shed up in a new yard." And it was just going to get out of hand. We were going to have to borrow way too much money. Like, we didn't even know whether it would work on this farm. It's quite a marginal farm. We're quite high up. We don't know the exact measurements, but 5 mile away from here, the boys are taking 4 cuts of silage. It's ridiculous. We lift so much between there and here. We're into reshes and all kinds around us. It's so we put this parlour in, and we managed to buy some. It was when milk was bad, actually, in 18, and the cows were very cheap. Nobody wanted any extra cows. Yeah. Milk was at its bottom, and we managed to buy some Jersey Friesian cross heifers, and some in-calf cows, and we fought on and put this parlour in and put a bit of concrete down, and I did quite a lot myself with help from builders and different things, but I spent many a night in there just welding and tinkering on, and doing the small stuff ready for the builders to come and do the big stuff, and then the parlour boys come and wired it in for us. When you think back, it was amazing what we did. Really, we managed to get it in, and to take it out and it all go back in and actually work was a blessing. But so in January of the 19, we fired the parlour up for the first time. The only problem was, by then, a lot of the cows I'd bought had calved. We didn't actually get. I wanted to buy them while they were cheap, but they were like autumn calvers.
Yeah.
So I managed to find 2 fellas that would milk them for us for a while, and so I had about 80 cows ready to come across. As soon as we got going, we were ready to go. So we got that parlour switched on, and a couple of wagons fetched these cows home, and away we went. It's been great, really. It's really turned this farm around, right?
It's quite literally a dream come true, isn't it?
It has.
Yeah. No, that's.
We'll say before we did all this, for anybody who wants to do it, is we had to secure a longer tenancy. There was no way. We were 2011 up to 2019, so we were 8 years into a 15. And to be honest with you, the contract to give us had 5-year break clauses in, which is what a lot of people now will come across. So they could offer you a 50-year tenancy with 5-year break clauses. It ain't a 50-year tenancy, it's a 5-year tenancy. And that's something that anybody looking to rent a farm has to just bear in mind. At any point, well, not at any point, at that 5-year break, you don't have to give them any reason to want you off other than they want you off. Whether you've paid the rent or looked after the farm to the very best of your ability, improved it loads, at 5 years they can say thank you very much, but we want the farm back. And
you could say it's a 50-year tenancy if almost against other folk getting it, but if they want it back in hand, there's always that opportunity to just it's
a 5 year. It's the break clauses bit that you need to just be wary of. How many years before there's a break or a rent review, you know.
Yeah.
So we got our landlord persuaded, if we're going to spend this money, we need to remove them break clauses. Because I'm going to spend a lot of money here, borrow it, I need to get it back. So,
yeah.
And he was keen. We'd looked after the farm well. We'd worked together well. We'd improved it. And he said, yeah, we'll do it. We'll add it up to 2045. So we have it to 2045 now with rent reviews, but no break clauses. So it gives us a chance to get this money back, you know.
Good.
Which not many landlords will do, and not many maybe tenants will come across. We've just happened to get a good landlord, and that's helped us along the way. And
lot to be said for it. I just I've always got two questions that I can't remember how many times you've watched this podcast, Ross. I know you mentioned two you had. Always got two questions. Always got two questions I want to end on, but I do have one thing that I want to cross quickly. You mentioned flushing earlier. Could you tell us a bit about what that is, how it works? It's a very interesting thing.
yeah. So we've done it quite a lot over the last few years. We've done conventional, what's called moe flushing. Moe, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's where
multiple ovulation embryo transfer.
Is it? You've learned that somewhere along the line, have you?
Well, I am an agricultural lecturer, so
yeah. So they come on farm. You line the cows up. You super ovulate them. When will it be? Super ovulate them about 10 days before they're coming into service. No, 3 or 4 days before service. So you jab them with hormone twice a day, and that makes them drop more eggs. Instead of just dropping the normal one egg that they would drop on a normal service, it's just a bit of hormone. You would AI them on the day they came, or bull them on the day they come in heat. And at day 7 of the calves growing, the vet would come on farm and flush the cows out, and that's where the word flushing comes from. So it's a small tube goes up the ovaries. They blow the end up with like a air, and so to block, make it watertight, and then they flush water in and suck water out. Flush water in and suck water out, and as it comes out, it fetches the eggs off that are attached to the womb, and then they collect them into like a little filter. So yeah, we've done that for years. Got on fairly well. We've had some crap results, some good results. Flushings are very much luck of the draw somehow. I don't know. You can do the same thing over and over and get 10 one day or 1 the next. It's and out the same cow in the same similar time of year. And we had our best cow was a cow called Isla, Topside Isla, and she'd won. She was champion at the Highland Show as a yearling. So back in 8 years ago, she's 8 now. So she won the female champion as a yearling, as a 12-month-old calf. And that was a real dream come true as well. First time we'd ever gone, we knew we had something decent, but we didn't just think we were going to go that far. But so she's been we've tried to flush her quite a lot. She didn't just do very well on the Moet flushing.
Right.
And there was a lot of talk about IVF coming around about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to the vet about them, the same vets that do the Moet flushing, they said she was doing eggs but unfertilized. So she would do 10 or 12 eggs, maybe only 1 or 2 fertilized. And they said them's the perfect ones to do for IVF. We can take the eggs out before the fertilization and we'll fertilize them for her in a dish, you know?
Yeah.
So we took Isla and we took her mother, who was the same sort of story, would give us eggs but not a lot fertilized. And the pair of them gave me 45 eggs on the first run. 25 off one and 20 on the other. All to the same bull, because I didn't know what the hell was going on. So I just said, I'll use 1 straw of a certain bull called Floron. And they rang me back a week later and said, yeah, Dinah's done 25 and Isla's done 20. It was just ridiculous. And I was like, what? Like, this is great, you know? Like, the best cows on the farm are now producing eggs. And So yeah, we've put a few of them in, and we took them back and picked some different bulls, some better bulls, some more expensive semen, and we've got a lot of eggs off Isla. She's doing 20 every time, 15 to 20 eggs every time we take her.
Yeah,
she's just worked well on IVF. And not all of them will. It's very family oriented. They tell me we haven't got on as well with some others. The conception rates have been very similar on IVF eggs to Moet,
right?
Which I'm quite not surprised about, but I'm very pleased about, because there was talk that they wouldn't hold as well, and there would be problems in all directions with IVF, but not. They've held just very similar, and the calves are very similar.
Very good. Well, I tell you what, I've got a fair idea of how it works, but having never seen it done in person, it's good to hear someone chat about it in real life, if you will. Not just sort of in theory. It's
so it works well now. We are putting the eggs in our dairy heifers that we rear. So we rear the heifers out of our cows that we know are Ionis and BVD tested.
Yeah.
Because we have to be on a herd health scheme to sell any of our blue cattle. So we rear them heifers up and put our IVF or normal Moet flushing eggs into our dairy heifers.
Yeah.
And they have the calves for us, and we book at rear a few, or we take the calves off and put the heifers back through the parlor, you see.
Yeah.
Or when we get our heifers back, and then I will switch a few 3 titters or high cell counters. I'll put my calves back onto them ones, the ones that I want to go out the top end.
Yeah.
So it's really all just working well for us at the minute.
Good. Good. Well, and when you got in touch with Ross, I love a story where we spoke at the start. It's not the easiest industry to get into, and yes, you had a way in, of course you did. But what you've sort of went from taking a few pet lambs, a few unwanted pet lambs, as pet lambs normally are, putting them essentially in a garden, and now where you are now, it's brilliant. So it's been a pleasure to have a chat. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking your time up until almost 10 o'clock on a weekday. But 2 more questions just before we finish off, and I think you'll be absolutely excellent for one of these purely because of the story. And that one is, if you had any tips for folk coming into the industry, what would they be? And secondly, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Where do I see myself in 5 years? Well, still here for starters. Still, I think we'll be here now for a good while. Still milking away. I'd have no qualms to grow any, really. We've got enough. What we're milking now, 140 cows is enough, manageable for what we're doing. I want to win the Highland Show overall champion at the Blue. That's
good one.
Yeah, that's the selfish of me, but we won the female champion years ago, and I want to win the overall.
Was it called the Supreme Champion? Is that
Supreme Blue Champion? Yeah, British Blue Champion. That's what I want. The Royal Bank of Scotland blue belly band around my cattle. That's what I want on my. That's one of my dreams.
Well, if you do, remember to promote this podcast.
Yeah. So that's and just I don't know. We've got 3 young kids there coming through, and they'll all still be at school in 5 years. But I'm doing this for them, really. I am the start of the. What's the right word I'm the first generation of this farm, of the Pattinsons as farmers. My dad's helped me along the way, but he didn't just hand me a farm. But I would like to hand something, either this tenancy or whether we could possibly one day buy somewhere, if we can get enough money together, just to secure everything for us. Rentings are okay as long as the tenancy is good enough. But a bit like Cammy, I suppose, my dream is one day to to buy somewhere and have somewhere to hand down to my family for the future.
Yeah.
That's a bit longer than your 5-year answer. That could be a 20-year answer, but that's I suppose that's a 20-year dream to possibly buy somewhere. But who would know where things are going to go over the next few years?
Okay, do you know? And that question is, nobody knows where they're going to be in 5 years. It's just quite fun to see where folk think. And I always like when folks say in the same position as they are, it always means they're happy. It's a good thing. If you had tips for someone, a 17-year-old out there wanting to get into farming, what would it be? Do the same as you did.
I would like to think it could work again if I wanted to start again now, because if you fit to work and you're keen to work and put the hours in, do the jobs that a lot of people don't like doing because they'll pay you better for your hourly rate. Milking cows, clipping sheep, dipping sheep, working with livestock, you can pretty much not name your price, but if you're doing a job that a lot of farmers don't have the time or aren't that keen on doing, you can make more per hour than you can go sitting on a tractor leading the trailers for somebody, because there's lots of people want to do that. There's lots of young ones want to do that. But that's the way I got to where I am, because I've made the most money for per hour that I had spare to go and work for somebody else by doing milking, clipping, dipping, whatever, fencing, all the stuff that was well paid per hour. And that got me on the ladder to go and buy a few sheep and go and rent a bit of land. Don't be frightened. This will maybe put a few back off, but don't be frightened to use the big company's credit.
Okay. Yeah.
They want your business. If you tell them, look, things are tight this month, I'll pay next month, I'll pay in 2 months. They'll, as long as you pay when you say you're gonna, use their credit a bit, and I don't know. As long as you're fair with them and say, look, I'm going to pay in 2 months, pay in 2 months, they won't mind. Or pay them a little bit each month, or tell them the story. Look, I've got no lambs to sell till August. Can you just wait for that first check till then? And I suppose I did that quite a lot for quite a few years. Just, cash flow was a problem. You were paying a rent every month. You were buying in the spring when you had nothing to sell.
It's like that though. It's milk's different for sure, but if you're attacking store and fat markets and stuff like that, it's a few months of the year. Good points. And you also mentioned one earlier on that I would say is a good tip to anyone, and that's you said about working just there, but work hard and that story gets out. I mean, it's a networking industry, and I've told a million folk this. I tell all my students this. It's very important. But listen, that's been great. Really enjoyed the chat. It's been good fun. It's always good to meet a new person. I mean, up until 2 weeks ago, we didn't know each other, Ross, and it's been great to hear your story. Unfortunately, you're seeing my story all over online every day.
Well, if there is anything I can help anyone with, I don't know how it would be possible, but if anybody was thinking of getting a start or wanted some advice or whatever, just whether through you or whatever, I don't know. Is contacting you on Instagram or anything like that something you'd be happy with folk doing? On Facebook, I don't really do Instagram, to be honest. Facebook more than anything else, Messenger. It's Ross Pattinson with as I said, Mr. Olympia type cow on there. That's Isla, lad. That's Isla. Yeah. Is it? That's our pride and joy. Yeah. She is a beauty. She is a beauty. So I feel free to get in touch, and thank you for coming on again, everyone that is listening. I will be seeing you in another 2 weeks' time. We've got Anna Jones on, who's written a book about the sort of divide between urban and rural environments. She's also a journalist on Country File. She does a lot of work with Adam Henson, that sort of thing. So another interesting one coming up in 2 weeks. And thank you as ever for listening.